So the first thing we're saying is it's expensive, and then the industry answer would be, okay, you don't have to collect all the traces. You don't have to collect 100% of the traces. You can collect only a sample of that. And when you're starting to sample the data that you're collecting, what's happening is you're losing data. So for the purpose of not spending too much money, we are collecting less data, and with that we're going to lose some data that it's going to cause that we won't be able to use tracing in certain use cases. So just to make sure we're on the same page here, you can't do 100% traffic. Personally, in our production, we're doing 100% of the traffic because we see the value of traces. I do understand that it could be too costly to start an organization, and then I would ask, um, what is the use case that you want to use traces for? So if the answer is, I want to debug any request, any issue, any performance thing, anything in my production environment that is not working, my first response tool would be traces. Then you need to have 100% of the traffic, and that's absolutely fine. You can do that. That's what I'm doing with my production environment. But at the end of this session, we will do a slide where we're trying to kind of estimate the cost of traces and run this um, cost analysis, have this kind of a magic number that okay, this is how much I think my trace is going to cost, and have a decision whether it's what you want to do or something you don't want to do. So if you want to debug everything, let's go with 100%. If we're talking about um, debugging issues or some performance issues that are something that a lot of users are experiencing, something that you would define as a system-wide issue, then you don't need to collect that much. And the number here, I put like 20 to 50. I would even say it could be even less, depending on the amount of traffic that you're having. So if you are a very big company, or not a big company that has a lot of traffic, then you can have less um, sampling rate to represent your production environment. So if you don't have much traffic, then you'll need a higher rate, because the probability that you would find those issues that you're looking for decreases. So most organizations that decided not to do 100%, in my opinion, would go to something between 20 to 50%. That means that if I'm doing a 50%, if I have 10 users that are having some issue, I most probably have like half of them that I'll collect and be able to see. That's the second use case that I would use, and I would put it like somewhere between 20 to 50. The third option is, okay, I want to understand how my application perform in the baseline. I'm not going to debug issues. I'm not going to expect that if somebody complains, I'll go to my traces and fix it from there. I won't find some user having an exception. And that's a statement that I'm having a bit of a problem with, because tracing is very powerful when debugging and fixing things, but it is something that you can do to understand how the application behaves in its baseline, to have a good representation of the different common cases. Then 5 to 10% would do just that. And you can go even less, like if you just want to have the overall architecture of your system. 5% or even less, even 1% may be enough. And those numbers are very dependent on the amount of traffic that you're having, but it's kind of to put you in a ballpark, and mostly ask yourself the question, what do I want to do with traces? Do I want to debug anything? We're 100%. Do I just want to have to understand what service communicate with what service? You can probably go with 1 to 5%. In a second, not in a second, a few minutes, we will understand that sampling could be more complex than that. It doesn't have to be just a percent. We can do more complex stuff. We can say, I want to take 10% of my application, but 100% of traces that had error in it. And this is going to introduce a whole new discussion, because if I'm having 5%, 10% of my system, I got the baseline, but I also have 100% sampling of error with traces with error. That means that I can debug any issue. So this is kind of the question you need to ask yourself before going to decide what to do with sampling.